Well, hello, and welcome to our final lesson within the series of lessons dealing with data administration. Today, we're looking at related entities and the defining of those relationships within inside metadata. So we are completing our discussion of the relationships feature by looking at the administration side of things now, rather than looking at the way in which a user deals with the relationships. So specifically in this particular lesson, we're going to be covering the knowledge needed to understand how to go about defining a relationship with inside the Sage CRM Related Entities feature. Now, to remind you about what we're considering here, this is the feature within Sage CRM that allows us to create relationships that are not bounded by the existing relationships within inside the main user screen. So if we think about just a company screen, we know that a company is going to have opportunities, communications, cases, and people associated with it. We can now, within the related entities feature, be able to start to create relationships, not just from as a parent-child relationship between a company and an opportunity, but we can create relationships of multiple types between a company and a company. So we can model company and supplier information, company and competitor information, and we can start to look then at the relationships which are where they are outside of the fixed relationships that are defined within Sage CRM. Now, if I ask you to cast your mind back to what we were looking at in the previous lesson about using the relationships, we actually had come in to looking at our discussion here of the company. I'm happen to look at a company called Gatecom. I'm logged on into the system, by the way, as a system administrator, and you can see that I've got different types of relationships modeled here, and I can start to explore this and see how this is set up by coming across into the administration screens. As I said, I'm logged on as a system administrator, and so I'm going to come down now inside administration into the data management area. And within data management, I've got the manage relationships types option available to me. So I'm going to choose this, and you can see that we are seeing the existing relationships that we were experimenting with in the previous lesson. So this is where they're defined. And you'll notice that we have got, importantly, this concept of not just a relationship defined from the prospect of a parent to a child or a child to a parent, but we also have associative relationships. This is this idea where the relationship is much more of equals. This is the sibling nature of relationships within Sage CRM. They're called sibling relationships, and they are associative. So they are not implying that one is somehow the controlling interest on top of the other. You may find that in the case of where you are trying to identify the additional influences on a opportunity, or where a particular case is linked to multiple companies. This is where you've got the focus on one, and you know that that one is going to have many of the others. That's where you would have a parent-child type relationship. But where it is an associative link, where they are equivalents, that's where you'd be defining a sibling relationship. And I think where we're going to start off with is through this definition of a sibling entity. Um, and if we do come to defining this, we have a screen, and here you can see that I've come in to the new screen to start the process. You've got to define the relationship type. Then you've got to define, you're always going to have to define the entity that you're assuming that you're first in focus of. So you're going to be defining, say, the company and then its relationship to another entity. Um, so one is going to be the parent or the first sibling, and then the child or the second sibling in the relationship. And then it's useful to be able to then also specify a relationship between the two. So the description is the long description of what this is all about. So this might be the influence of directors on a company, and then the color is simply, as it says here, it's the idea that you want to be able to group entities by a particular type within the relationships page and have a visual clue as to what type of information is displayed here. That's why you'd have color coding. Now, if I step on then and look at some examples of the types of relationships that we can create, it might be that I want to set up a sibling relationship. And a sibling relationship is, as I said here, it's an associative relationship where you're just linking two entities together without any sense of hierarchy. So a company may share research with another company, but each relationship is viewed as a mutual relationship. So in the case of a sibling relationship, I am the brother of so and so, and the reverse is so and so is the brother of me. It's the relationship defined in both ways. I happen to have found here phrasing which allows me to say the same thing, but expressing the relationship in the other direction. So shares research with, research collaboration with. And that when it comes to the parental-child relationships, these are defined again in, they're defined when you start with one entity, you're always going to be describing it in the terms of has or having or by, or so here you've got an opportunity is influenced by a person, and a person influences an opportunity. But of course, you're starting then the idea that a person could influence multiple opportunities. You're starting to imply a hierarchy here. An opportunity decision sponsored by person. You can see that you're moving between entities here, and person sponsors decision for an opportunity. So all types of relationships can be expressed. I'm starting to set this up here. I'm going to choose a sibling relationships. First of all, I'm choosing company, and I've defined this as linking with another company. So company to company, and you can see that I've used the example that I gave just now, the idea that these are research companies that are pooling their research and being able to mark this out as a formal type of relationship. So very simple to be able to define. I can save this, and then I can continue, click on the continue button, and you can see that I'm returned to the list. And I've got this listing out now inside here. If I now start to create another relationship. In this particular case, I'm going to set this up using the concept of the parent-child relationship type. And when you're setting up a parent-child relationship, you're always going to be starting from a particular point of view. You're either going to do a child-parent relationship or a parent-child relationship. Here, I'm defining the relationship with the phrasing both ways. So this is the idea of opportunity to person. So the person there is the child entity, and I give this a description and a color as well. Same way, I'll save this and I'll then continue, and you can see that I've got my relationships defined here. So how do I go about and use this? Well, we go back and into our company. You can see that I've come back into Gatecom, and if I look at my relationships, I can go ahead and click the plus to start creating a new relationship. So here is my sibling relationship, and I look down all of the sibling relationship types, and I can choose the type that I'm interested in. And here you can see that I'm choosing this idea of the research collaboration. And I've happened to have gone away and I've chosen a company here, Health Polymers, and they're researching the idea of packaging for products. If I save this, you can see that it's saved back into my relationships. And we saw in the preceding lesson, this would start to show up in our reports, etc., that I wanted to be able to use. But let's remind ourselves of what we look at when we think about parent relationships normally. Here you can see this company has got opportunities associated with it. You can see as well here that they're all have a main contact for them, Simon Yaltoy. So anyone selling into this company, their main contact appears to be Simon Yaltoy. But we may know that Simon Yaltoy isn't the only person dealing with matters. And so if I think about that, if I now click to explore a particular opportunity, I may need to be able to record who are the people who are involved in this as either an influencer, a stakeholder, a gatekeeper, all of the different people who are involved in a particular sales process. I want to have some form of relationship to the person entity in here to describe that richness of the relationships. I can start to do this through the relationships tabs. At the moment, there's nothing recorded in here. And so it's very clearly, if I click the plus symbol, I can start to do that. So I'm going to create a relationship. In this particular case, I'm not rephrasing this from the perspective of the parent. In this relationship here, the opportunity is the child to the person. So I can now look at this relationship and I can start to find the person that I want. In my particular case, the person has to be somebody who belongs to Gatecom. So I'm looking up with all of the contacts that I've got within Gatecom, finding them, selecting them, and you can see that I'm writing that back inside the system. So I now know who within Gatecom for this opportunity is the main sponsor, the person who wants this to go ahead and is using their influence within the meetings, board meetings where the project or the opportunity is being discussed. So if I save that and add in the details that I want and save, you can see that that's been pushed into my relationships tab for this opportunity, and I can follow this to look at how we can report on this type of information. Because, of course, it becomes useful that we've created a new relationship. We should be able to get information out from this. And in this particular case, I want to look at all of the relationships around the company. So I'm going to choose here, actually, the way in which related companies are related to companies. And you can see this particular report, and if I run it, you'll see the information there. This is it, and you'll notice here straight away that we have got our research collaboration being documented there. So from the relationship between the companies, it's showing up inside the reports. But if we want that type of report there, if I close this down and return back into our report screen, I'm going to back up, if you like, up to where we had our report definitions. That report that I was using needs to be understood as something that is under our control. We can come into these reports either to clone a report or to create a brand new report, but here you can see where my existing report related company to company is being defined. That's the one that I've just run, and you can see the elements of what is the view that is being used. You can see as well the columns that are available in the report and which have been included within criteria if necessary, etc. So this is the information that we can build into our reports using the underlying view. And that raises the question, really, that it's the view that is the most interesting thing. And to get to that, we have to go into our administration screens. And this is where I'm going now. And if I click back into administrations, of course, I'm still in the screens where I was setting up the relationship. But if I just navigate up to customization and then down into looking at companies, and it is for all of the existing views around related entities, you'll find them underneath company. I'm going to go into views, and if I scroll right down to the bottom, they're all prefixed with this idea of VRELA, and I can see the report that I'm interested in, and I'm just going to notice these VRELA ones are all user views. Now, because they're user views, they are views that you can change as a system administrator. Although, if you are going to do customization of this area, I would strongly advise you to create your own versions of these views. But if we look into one of these, we can see that the view is really quite straightforward to be able to create, and we can even see that this is obviously being used, as we saw it being used, for the purposes of reports. And we could also see that it is possible to start to think about this for group use. And if it's used for groups, then we could start to do it for other purposes, sending these groups across where we have defined our relationships. We could be even sending things across into MailChimp or to other systems to be able to look at the idea of sectioning our data based on these sorts of novel relationships that we define inside the system. So Sage CRM out of the box supports all forms of defined relationships. When we think about a company, we think that a company consists of all of the contacts that it has, all of the addresses that are associated with that, all of the opportunities, the cases, etc. These are the defined relationships which are modeled within the user interface, but we may want to have a much greater sense of freedom in being able to create novel forms of relationships that can model associative relationships as well as hierarchical relationships, which we then want to be able to use for reporting purposes or even for other forms of use, such as groups or customizations, etc. Now, that's brought us to the end of this particular discussion on relationships. We've looked at the defining of our relationships now, and coupled with the usage that we saw in the previous lesson, we're now at the end of the section around data administration. Let's see if anyone's got any questions. Thank you very much for attending this series. Thank you and goodbye.